After coming home from middle school, ready to binge watch another show, as usual, I pushed my recliner seat up and I grabbed my bag of Boom Chicka Pop. I came across Jessie, a Disney Channel show about a multicultural family, and I was so excited because I saw a South Asian boy on the cover of the show, named Ravi. This excitement was so unfamiliar to me, as I had never seen shows with South Asian representation before. But the more I watched, the more I realized misrepresentation is just as bad as a lack of representation. There was a particular episode where Ravi was attending his first day of school. His character would exaggerate stereotypes, from awkwardly greeting people by asking to show them a picture of his lizard, to being called a traffic cone for wearing a sherwani, a beautiful garment commonly worn in South Asia. To really deliver the final blow that Ravi was uncool, they made him roll on the ground yelling when the school bell rang, because he apparently had never heard what a bell is in his many years of life. Ravi was seen as embarrassing, socially awkward, and his accent was painfully over-dramatized, with the laugh track constantly playing in the background. Ravi was often the brunt of the joke. My initial excitement slowly chipped away, episode by episode, as the so-called representation seemed to portray someone nothing like me. Throughout my life, I have watched so many movies and TV shows that my doctors would literally gawk at my screen time. Yet, despite these screen addictions, I never saw someone who looked like me in American film and television, especially in the so-called iconic ones, like Hannah Montana, High School Musical, and The Notebook. The main characters were almost always white, with complex storylines and white love interests. Later on, when I would see representation, it was a complete miss. Through Ravi from Jessie, Baljeet from Phineas and Ferb, Raj from The Big Bang Theory, Apu from The Simpsons, the list goes on. All these characters were extremely similar to one another, with their dramatized accents, inability to find a bow, and most importantly, they were side characters, included for comic relief to assist the main character, but never the main character. The only representation I was getting was vastly inaccurate. I suddenly felt very self-conscious about how others perceived me, and whether I was going to be compared to these South Asian characters I saw on screen. A range of thoughts spiraled through my mind. Did they expect me to be awkward, unathletic, or embarrassing? They think I'm exactly like Ravi, don't they? Why can't I be seen as the main character? I started to feel like a side character in my own life, so I felt a need to push these stereotypes as far away from myself as possible, to prove that I do not fit into the inaccurate and one-dimensional molds media created for me. This led to a period of internalized racism, which sadly many minority groups end up going through. I stopped bringing lunch from home, stopped listening to Bollywood music, and lied when people asked if I studied for the test to seem nonchalant about school. The worst part about all this is that I tried to abandon my culture, a culture so rich and beautiful because of how it defined me in the minds of others. Then I hit a turning point, which really made me see how film affects our perspectives. When chatting with one of my new friends in class, she told me, "You're not like other Asians." She expected it to be a compliment, but I was deeply offended. Isn't that what I wanted? To distance myself from the stereotype on screen? Yes, but her phrasing here is important. She did not say you're not like the Asians I see on TV. She said, "You're not like other Asians." She truly believed that all Asians fit into the stereotype she saw on TV. A perspective she apparently held for around 60% of our world. There are around 4.5 billion Asian people in the world, and she thought we all were the same awkward character she saw on TV. It doesn't make sense. I realized by running away from my culture, I was a part of the problem. The less people saw of my culture, the less they would learn about it, making them get their only information from inaccurate media. They would truly believe that Padma and Parvati Patel's awful Yule Ball outfits from Harry Potter are common traditional Indian clothing. I could not let that happen. Not embracing my roots was only hurting myself and erasing a part of who I am. I started going back to loving my roots, jamming out to the Ye Jawani Hai Diwani soundtrack, bringing the rich, appetizing aromas of my ethnic cuisine back to lunch, and celebrated Holi and Dandiya with my friends. After I began to truly understand the effects that film has on our perspectives, I wondered why South Asian actors would take on these roles and wanted to see the experience they had in Hollywood. The acting industry is so tough, especially for people of color, that a majority of the only roles available for South Asians are ones perpetuating some kind of stereotype with a thick accent. I came across Kal Penn, a popular South Asian actor known for his work in The Namesake. He would ask the casting directors if his character could not have an accent, and they would ask for more authentic accents, meaning heavily exaggerated accents usually used for comedy. Even on the rare occasion South Asians are casted into a film, most are of Indian descent, when in reality, there are 7 other rich and diverse South Asian countries who are often overlooked and deprived of any representation, since writers choose Indian characters to represent the diverse and complex range of the South Asian community. On top of that, most of the South Asian representations on screen are not even crafted by South Asians, reinforcing the stereotype the usually white writer believes in. These characters are essentially fit for the white gaze. Even when South Asians want to go into film, they're often forced into a role that casting directors think the audience would find funny and pay to see. So, how can we change this? We first have to notice how film and television affects our perceptions in real life. How we are all represented on screen affects how we are seen by the people around us, can simplify us or treat us as if we are one-dimensional. This can have harmful effects, such as periods of internalized racism and some microaggressions. But the audience has the power to change what we see on film. If the audience stops watching and showing interest in a certain stereotype, Hollywood will not make them anymore. We cannot find these stereotypes hilarious and need to understand the detrimental effects they have on children growing up. We need to be seen as equals, not as side characters or the butt of an offensive joke. Let it be known to showrunners that these stereotypes hurt, and put pressure on them to hire more South Asian writers and actors through signing petitions, spreading this information through social media, for example, and even going into film ourselves. Even if you are not South Asian, you still have a big part to play. So notice and talk about this issue. You can love a show, yet still call out its flaws in representation. Encourage more South Asians to tell their stories. Listen to positive South Asian creators, such as Hasan Minhaj, Kumail Nanjiani, Jamila Jamil, Mindy Kaling and Dev Patel. Continue watching and supporting roles like Tahani from The Good Place, Mindy Lahiri from The Mindy Project, and Hasan Minhaj's Netflix special, Homecoming King. Read articles about South Asians' viewpoints on their representation in film, such as The Simpsons Silences Apu, South Asian Creatives' Hope for the Character's More Authentic Revival by Sharbari Duri, and Why We Need More Diversity in South Asian Representation by Mishma Nixon. So many South Asian stories are out there to be told, and it is up to all of us to tell them or urge others to speak up. Representation is so important for every single one of us, no matter race or ethnic group. It makes us feel seen, understood, and represented in our own lives. Inaccurate portrayals stifle and limit us because none of us are one-dimensional, and we are all so much more than a side character in overused stereotype. The next time a young South Asian girl plops herself in front of her TV and grabs her bag of Boom Chicka Pop to binge watch another show, I want her to be able to find an accurate representation of herself. Characters not constantly at the brunt of the joke. Characters not defined solely by their ethnicity. South Asian love interests. Complex, multi-dimensional characters. Main characters that empower us and uplift culture. Thank you.